What a year for the TCU Horned Frogs. A national championship game appearance didn't go their way, but it was one of the more exciting seasons that we've seen in recent history. And honestly, to me, there are a lot of things that were more memorable than any other team last year. You look at what they were able to do in Sonny Dykes' first season, we've never really seen that before. And now TCU gets a chance to be a mainstay at the top of the Big 12. The 10 guys that we'll talk about today will help them in that goal. And when you look at what Sonny Dykes has done in the transfer portal and recruiting, it's easy to see why the Horned Frogs will stick around for a long time. Now, the first guy we're going to talk about is able to, if he's able to replace Kendre Miller, I think that this team is in great hands. EMANI Bailey will be competing with Trey Sanders, the Alabama transfer, for the starting running back job. And you look at his production from last year, 8.1 yards per carry. That's as the third string running back. And I think that he is someone who could have an explosive year, a breakout year. Now, yes, he does have to beat out Sanders, and they're probably still going to share carries in the backfield, but we finally get to see what the former Louisiana transfer can do for this offense. And in a Sonny Dykes offense, there's a lot to be excited about if you're already putting up that kind of production as a third stringer. Now, another guy who I'm excited to see, but on the defensive side of the ball, Dominic Williams at 6'2, 320, defensive freshman of the year in the Big 12. I think that he's going to have to take a step forward just because the depth on the defensive line just isn't there right now. There's not a ton of proven players that can step up and show that they're ready to compete yet. And a guy like Dominic Williams is going to have to take on a leadership role early. He's going to have to show this is what it's like to play in the Big 12. This is what it's like to play college football at a high level. I'm really excited to see what he can do with that opportunity, but it's a different opportunity that he's maybe not used to yet. Obviously, the skill position players got a ton of recognition for what they did on the offense last year, but the offensive line deserves a lot of love too. Now, they lose a couple key pieces, but Brandon Coleman does return among a couple other guys that will be key contributors. And Coleman is just one of the players that will have an impact on this team. The offensive line deserved a ton of recognition for what this offense did last year. And Coleman is one of those players. 6'6", 325 pounds. He ushers in a new quarterback in a way, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But this offensive line must find multiple new starters, and guys like Coleman returning make that transition a little bit easier. And that's honestly going to help the secondary, the skill position players and what they're able to do because there's some skill position players that need to step up. One of those guys being Jared Wiley. The tight end is 6'7", 255 pounds. To me, he takes a step forward. He is one of those players that has a breakout season. You look at what Max Duggan did last year and who he kept looking for. And obviously, you look at Darius Davis, not the biggest guy. You look at Tay Barber. Quentin Johnson was his target that he constantly looked for, that big target that you want. And now Jared Wiley doesn't have the speed of Quentin Johnson, but he has the size that you're looking for. And there's another guy we'll talk about here in a little bit that fits that description. But when you're looking at someone that can be a reliable target simply based on size, just to give your quarterback opportunities, Jared Wiley is one of those guys. Another guy is Savion Williams, 6'5", 215 pounds. Everyone kind of expects him just to fit into that Quentin Johnston role. Now, whether or not he does that remains to be seen, but we saw some flashes in his game last year. We saw him do certain things every once in a while that made you think this is the guy that's going to replace Quentin Johnston. I think that he has the potential to do it. It's just a matter of being consistent. 29 catches, 392 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He is honestly one of the bigger X factors in this offense. If he's able to take a step forward and be that reliable pass catcher, be that explosive playmaker for the TCU offense, I think they're in good hands. Now, other guys that you're going to have to talk about, one of them is going to be John Paul Richardson. He's not going to be Savion Williams or the Quentin Johnston, but he is a reliable playmaker that's already making noise in TCU's camp. I think that he did a good job at Oklahoma State. He was a productive receiver, and now he gets an opportunity to play in an offense that showed they can be one of the most explosive in college football. And I think that he was a great addition for Sonny Dykes and TCU. Now, other guys, you look at Dalen Wright, comes in from Minnesota. I think JoJo Earl could be explosive. From everything I've heard, JoJo Earl is another guy making an impact. There's a lot of players you could put in these three spots, and I don't have an argument against that. John Paul Richardson is just one of those guys that can be a reliable pass catcher for a new quarterback. New, I say in quotes, but That's going to be huge. Now, another area to keep an eye on is the secondary because they return quite a bit of talent despite losing the Jim Thorpe Award winner in Travis Hodges Tomlinson. Bud Clark comes back, and everybody remembers Bud Clark for probably two things. The first one is the swing that he took at Bensonot in the Big 12 championship game, but they also remember his pick six against Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl, the college football semifinal. And he is a playmaker that showed up last year. 5 interceptions in 2022, and now he gets to take on a leadership role. It sounds like he's already doing that in practice, and that's huge for a secondary again that returns quite a bit of talent and will still need to take a step forward because of maybe the lack of depth, the lack of experience in front of them. Now, a huge player, probably the biggest X factor on this team is the quarterback position. And it was the same last year. Chandler Morris actually won the starting job last year. And from everything that I've heard, he was better than Max Duggan in practice. So there was some, do you keep Duggan in and whatnot, or do you let Morris go because he is actually killing it in practice? And I think that Duggan was such a gamer that you just kind of had to roll with a hot hand. You had to roll with what he was able to do. And it was honestly an incredible season. I don't think if I'm Sonny Dykes, I don't change anything about last year, and I don't think he would either. I think that Max Duggan taking the starting spot after Morris went down with an injury was the right move, and to keep him in for the season was the correct decision. And now Chandler Morris, who again, like everyone's reporting, was better than Duggan, this offense could be even better than it was last year. Now, obviously, the skill positions have to take steps forward. There's a lot of new guys. There's not a ton of returning a consistent experience. I mean, you look at Barber, Davis, and Johnston had over 2,000 yards receiving. That's not going to be easily replaced. Kendra Miller is not always going to be easy to replace. DeMarcado is not going to be easy to replace. Chandler Morris plays a huge role because he is going to be able to get guys on the same page, get them together and say, this is where we need to be. This is what we need to do. And he is a leader that I think is going to have a huge year. I'm excited to see what he can do. And if he can stay healthy, I think this offense is in great hands. Speaking of in great hands, the secondary, like we talked about, super talented. One guy returning at linebacker that will also help the front seven is Johnny Hodges. I think linebackers actually, now that think about it again, linebackers probably fine. The defensive line is really where they need some help. And Johnny Hodges is an experienced player that can get everyone into position. 150 career tackles with the Horned Frogs, 13 and a half tackles for a loss. He is a leader. He knows how to make plays, and that's going to rub off on a group that is inexperienced up front. Now, the secondary and the linebackers will get them there, but it's just a matter of what are they able to do with that inexperience? Can they get certain talent to step up? And Joe Gillespie has done a great job of getting this team to where they need to be. And now you get a new challenge. And Hodges is a natural playmaker, maybe not the most athletic linebacker, but he is someone that can make plays. He is a consistent player and can kind of fill the role for D Winters now that he's gone. Another experienced player, and to me, it's still a slept on player, is Josh Newton. I think that at times, Josh Newton was one of the best cornerbacks in college football, and he does not still get the recognition he deserves. He is someone who is still flying under the radar. I think a lot of people just simply overlook him for whatever reason, and that's unfortunate because he is electric on the field. He played obviously when you have the Jim Thorpe Award winner, it's easy to see why people look past you. But this is someone who is extremely talented, made a lot of big plays for TCU last year, and you're going to see that again. I think that TCU is in great hands with Sonny Dykes. When you saw what he did at Cal, you kind of had some concerns about him as a head coach. But when you realized that Cal is really hard to win at, and then you saw him succeed as much as he did as at SMU, you kind of expected TCU to be good. Now, I don't think anybody, even within the TCU program, expected a national championship run, but I think that you knew Sonny Dykes was going to keep this team towards the top of the Big 12. Now, obviously, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, TCU shouldn't have any excuses for why they can't win or compete for a Big 12 title every single year. And that's still the case again in 2023. I think that they still can. There obviously needs to be some pieces that step up and make that happen. But this is a team that's really good, team that's really explosive and has plenty of talent on both sides of the ball. It's just a matter of working well together. Chandler Morris needs to take a step up, and the skill position players need to help him out as well.